Hola, ¿qué tal? Hola. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Estimados compañeros y amigos, les reiteramos la más cordial bienvenida al evento internacional Global Glance, Tu Ventana al Mundo, que desde la Dirección General de Internacionalización y el Comité Estratégico de Cultura y Pensamiento Global se ha organizado con mucho entusiasmo para toda nuestra comunidad UPAE. Ahora nos encontramos ya en nuestro segundo día de actividades. Esta es la tercera conferencia titulada The World Through the Lens of Prosperity. Why are some places richer than others? Impartida por el candidato a PhD, Massimo Riva, de quien leeré una breve semblanza. We are honored with the kind presence of PhD candidate Massimo Riva, whose professional bio I will mention. Massimo is a PhD candidate at LUC, Università Cataneo, de Italia, focusing his research interest on the competitiveness of companies and territories. He authored scientific papers like Turning Green, Mapping the Green Transition of Italian Cluster, winner of the 2021 Competitiveness Review Prize for Best Paper at the Mock Research Workshop at Harvard Business School. As a researcher at the Institute of Entrepreneurship and Competitiveness at LUC, he leads the analysis of Italia Compete, a dissemination initiative on the state of competitiveness in Italy. Italia Compete projects include the Entrepreneurial Index, assessing the condition of cities in fostering the formation and growth of startups, and clustering mapping, monitoring of specialization in individual activities. Also, the Innovation Monitor and examination of the technological specialization of companies. Outside academia, he has more than 10 years of working as a consultant, servicing startups, established ventures, and nonprofit organizations on topics in operations and strategy. Nowadays, he collaborates with Strategic, a think tank, advising policymakers on industrial strategies. And if you choose LUC as your destination for exchange, he is also a teaching assistant at the course of Entrepreneurial and Regional Competitiveness and Strategic Entrepreneurship. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Okay, thank you so much, Marco, for the introduction, and thank you for being here. Hopefully the topic will be very interesting for you, since maybe you are going to start your international experience, or even just thinking about your courses. When thinking about the topic of today, I start thinking about the name of this event, so Global Glance, and also his catchphrase, Tu Ventana al Mundo. And when you think about seeing through a ventana, or even through something like at a glance, you always your mind as a human try to apply some sort of perspective. So I'm short-sighted. I cannot see without glasses. It's the same here. We are trying to do here today is to show you a perspective about how and why countries and places have different degree of richness, and we will see some example that you can apply when you are seeing the world through your lenses. The first slide, please. I'm gonna. Okay, I got the control. Thank you. So at the very beginning, we will start asking ourselves, what is richness? If we talk about an individual, so a single person, we can say that it's rich if it was able to accumulate a certain amount of wealth, like a lot of houses, a lot of money in its bank. But not only that, because also we can also look at the income. So how many money is made every day or every month. But maybe there is also some other things to consider about an individual, because you can be very rich in your work, you can be very rich in your wealth, but also you have to consider the quality of your life. When we are looking to places, we can also apply the same concept. We can start looking at the wealth of a nation, given the amount maybe of their industries, the infrastructure, how many airports, how many energy infrastructure. And also we can look at the population, not only in the number, but also in the total amount of knowledge that population has in knowledge like higher education. If you're looking at income, we can look at the GDP is a common metrics for economists to look at, and it's the total amount of service and goods produced in a country in a given time. But once again, as we told before, maybe richness is not really about wealth, it's not really about income, but also it's about social progress. You can be in a very rich country, but you can still have some issue regarding basic needs or income distribution and wealth distribution. And so I want to introduce you this concept regarding richness, that is the concept of prosperity. The concept of prosperity includes a double dimension. So they try to synthesize both the economic prosperity, so what we told before about the total set of industries, of infrastructure, and also the GDP with the social progress. So at the same time, looking at the economic perspective on the richness of a country and also on its social progress. When we talk, of course, about social progress, we need to look at different dimensions of social progress, starting like with basic human needs, like having good housing system, or having access to water, sanitation, and also to proper feed, but also the foundation of well-beings, like the access to education, and so on, up to the opportunities like equality in gender, so women, and also to access to higher education for giving people the opportunity to develop their career. On the other side, economic perspective, I'm going to introduce you the framework called the Microeconomics of Competitors, developed by Michael Porter at HBS. And essentially, it will be based on the economic prosperity of a country. It will be assessed by the amount of the natural endowments a country has. Like a country can be very rich if they have a lot of natural resources. Think about petros for having an idea. But not all about that. You also have to look at the condition of the general macroeconomic environment. So it's a stable currency, it's open to trade, and so on. And also to the microeconomics, so to focusing on the condition on which the companies are able to compete and achieve prosperity. And just for having a comparison, this is a social progress index. It's an index measuring the social progress, as we've seen before, across all the world. And you can see there's a lot of difference between countries in social progress, difference that are not really linked to their economic development. So just for having a few examples, we can look at Mexico is in the tier 3, or Italy is in tier 2. We have Norway, Finland, and Denmark leading the score, the ranking of this social progress index. But if we look at not only between countries, we will having differences between social progress. We also have such difference in social progress within the same country and also within the same state or region. This is the project led by Sintonia that you should know. Hi, Pablo. And so measuring how the different level of prosperity also changes and varies a lot between within the same countries and even between municipalities in the state of Puebla. And so what we are going to do now, we will also look at another concept in order to ask ourselves, okay, but prosperity really, what drives prosperity? So what we can do in order to enhance prosperity, both social progress and economic for our territories. As I told you before, the concept of competitiveness derives from the works of Michael Porter, here in a picture. And the logic of competitiveness and territories is quite simple. So a place can be prosperous if their firms operating there are able to compete successfully. So what does it mean in the global economy? So what does it mean? They also have to maintain and improve the wages of their citizens and the standard of living. So competitiveness is not something that is created by government. It's something that is led and created by firms. That doesn't mean that government does not nothing. We will see later on during this presentation, which is the role of government in creating prosperity. And if you look at this perspective, so that the prosperity of a nation is how companies are able to compete on global markets, you need also to introduce two other concepts. The first one is the concept of productivity. So how much is the value that you are able as a company to produce with an amount of work? So if you take like a standardized 1 hour of work, you should check and how much value you are able to produce with that time. And secondly, of course, also it's important to mention also the participation of the workforce. So we can have high productivity, but also we have some degree of unemployment. What is not competitiveness? It's quite easy to think about maybe, okay, competitiveness is just creating job. That is not the case. You can create a lot of jobs in a low productivity sector. That is not going to be competitive, because low competitive sectors, think about usually the service or also low income tourism area. The wages there are not good. They are not good because the productivity is low. And also what is not competitiveness? Competitiveness is not lowering the currency for attracting investment. That is going to be just to, if a government, a central bank chooses this option, it would be just a way to erode and to consume national richness. And if we look once again at the data, we can look at the competitiveness index by the World Bank, the World Economic Forum. And once again, we have a lot of differences between countries in their state of competitiveness. Let's look at Mexico. Mexico places 21st over the 138 countries analyzed by this index. And we also have a detail of which are the different dimensions in which Mexico is better or worse performing with respect to the other countries that have a similar GDP or similar results. So we look at the institution, the state of infrastructure, the macroeconomic environment, but also as well the efficiency of labor markets and business sophistication and innovation. As you can see, the focus of competitiveness is firms, and now firms are able to compete. We can also look from the same research, which are the main issue for Mexico and, or better, for Mexican business in competing. Of course, the first rank was in corruption, crime and theft, and inefficient. And once again, is something that is really specific of Mexico, because if we look at the same data and issue for such example, Italy will also have the inefficient government bureaucracy and also the high tax rates as a factor problematic for competitiveness. And once again, if we look not only at the comparison between countries and we focus on the comparison within a country, we can see the difference between, like, in Italy, that's it's a huge and very quite problematic differences between the richer north and the poorer south. We have a difference in the GDP that is more than half. So like in Milano, the GDP per person is over 55,000 euros or $1,000 per person, when in the south, like Sicily or Calabria, we have less than 15. Just to think that the huge differences. And of course, the same differences also applies in if you look at Mexico, when we have a very rich state, like sorry, I have to check the name. I forgot already them. The Nuevo León or Campeche, or the more poorer, like state of Chiapas, and so on. And so, if we for concluding and saying, I have a little recap of this framework to understand why places are more richer than other. This is the full concept you have to keep in mind. Prosperity is just not about GDP. It's not just about wages. It's a more complex topic that includes both the economic prosperity and the social progress. And how you can create prosperity if you're a state, you have to look at how firms compete and are they able to compete. And how they're able to compete, it's a different forms of factors, as we said before, like institution, market regulation, and so on. But also, everything leading to the productivity, so the amount of value that is created with labor, and also innovation. So let's think about if we are a policymaker, just try to wear the hat of a policymaker and think about what we can do if we need to create prosperity in our territories, what we can do, where we can start. Usually you can start by looking at what we have inherited. What does it mean? As you've seen before, I'm going to try to switch to this one. Yeah, it's working. Okay. So, okay, I didn't see the step. And so if we are looking at if we're in the perspective of a policymaker, we are trying to enhance the competitiveness and the prosperity of our location, we can start looking at what we have inherited. No more working. Okay. Yeah, I need to be closer. Okay. And so, as we said before, we were talking about the endowments, natural endowments. This is the greatest, of course, if you are in a country where you have a lot of sun and heavy and very few days of cloudy days and covered days, rainy days, you can build solar power. You can rely on solar power. So this is example the greatest photovoltaic plants in the world, that is in Abu Dhabi, of course. But also you can talk about other type of your natural resources, like the wind for the North Sea in Norway. Norway is a really small country, accounting for less than 0.1% of world population. Even there, they were able to compete successfully at first in the maritime industry, since their position on the North Sea, but also later on also developing all the knowledge and the know-how in order to capture wind power. So starting and looking what are the characteristics of your territories is a good way to start to think about improving competitiveness. But that's not the only thing you can do, because what is also most important, not only thinking about your natural resources, because if you don't have natural resources, it's not that you're gonna be out of the business and stop. You have also look at what you can do. Let's think about Singapore. Singapore is a really small country. It's not small as the Vatican, but it's quite small. It's almost a city. Even then, and with very few natural resources, Singapore was able to be one of the most competitive areas and prosperous areas in the world, because they started what a long path in developing their industries, starting back in the 60s with the petrol refineries, and then moving from petrols to chemicals, and chemicals, pharmaceutics, then pharmaceutics. You got also electronics. If you combined both of them, you got the biotechnology and biotech. So think about also how this prosperity can be led by government initiatives and can lead to the creation of variety of industries that can compete globally. And quite the same, even if different, for San Diego. San Diego started their industrialization led by the aerospace and defense industry, led by US military. So they have the base, they have the shipbuilding, and then what happened from them? You also start to develop infrastructure. Infrastructure lead to possibilities to have tourism in San Diego. And from there, once again, the military spending also led to the creation of other industries. Once again, electronics are quite common in San Diego. And finally, also what we will see in this final part of the presentation will be the prosperity that also has been created by not only by the firms itself and the revolution, but also by some initiatives, successful initiatives that has been led by by government and private organization. So if we look at what prosperous location do, we have 3 ways to. Okay, sorry. We can look at 3 different ways in which prosperous location can enhance their prosperity. The first one is to act through an increasing sophistication of company strategies. So if company strategies get better, they were able to compete better. But in order to do that, government can act on the condition of the business environment. Do you remember the different conditions we saw about Mexico in the competitiveness index, like corruption or a law? That's our issue that the government should take on in order to increase the prosperity, the overall prosperity of the country. And another pillar is the cluster presence. Clusters are quite a natural phenomenon occurring occurring naturally. And cluster, what are clusters? Cluster is a concentration in a specific, maybe there is some MOC students here, I don't know. Yeah, I think there maybe that already know the topics, but cluster are an agglomeration of industry from related industry in a particular location. So you can think also about as a cluster about the cluster of automotive here in Puebla. You have a Volkswagen, of course, that is a leading company, but then you also have an increasing presence of all the supplier of Volkswagen in order to make a car. This kind of conglomeration that is going to occur is called a cluster. And so a cluster is not only made by companies, as I said before, but if you look at the cluster map, the figure in the presentation of the biopharmaceutical cluster in Boston, you can see that cluster also come together institution, research organization, university, and specialized services like financing, or maybe also specialized services in higher education. And what is important to see that issue, because in cluster companies can compete better. Companies have access to better inputs. Company has access to better education, to better talent. And that, what does it mean? That it means that if you analyze the differences between companies that are in clusters and companies that are not, they have a higher rate of employment, a higher wage, and also our rate of innovation. So it's also important to see that naturally occurring phenomenon in order to understand better what you can do in order to, as a country, in order to enhance your prosperity. And now we are going to see 3 different examples through the world. As I told you, the first part of this speech was to give you a perspective about understanding better the topic of richness and topic of prosperity. And now we're going to see, with that perspective, with that lens, we're going to see 3 different cases, and hope you will enjoy it. So the first one will be in Denmark, in the city of Odense. I don't know if you have ever heard about that city. Yeah, really, it's really small. And then the city, when we'll take a little trip to Netherlands, to the Alsamir city, and finally we also have a stop in Italy. We finish with Italy in the city of Modena. That maybe some of you knows because it's quite the heart of the automotive industry in Italy with Ferrari and Lamborghini. So let's start with Odense. And Odense is a very small city. It's about, if I remember well, under 30,000 people. So it's a really small city. But it has become, in over 40 years, the leading center for collaborative robots. This kind of technology. They really create that kind of technology in manufacturing. We will see a short video now, and then we're going to discuss a little bit how that kind of activities have been able to develop in Odense. Okay.
Robots are changing our world. They're revolutionizing the way we collaborate, the way we think, the way we work, and the way we create. Robots are helping people work smarter and businesses grow stronger. So imagine a place where robotics companies are collaborating instead of competing, where the ecosystem is capable of commercializing startups and new technologies, where you will find an international test center for drones, and where the university is so good it won the unofficial world championship in robotics. That place is the Danish city of Odense. Maybe you've heard of something called universal robots.
We wanted to make a robot that's more like a tool that helps people do their work, more than this big machine behind the fence that deals with people's jobs.
The team created what today is known as collaborative robots or cobots. In 2015, everything changed. Universal Robots was acquired for $285 million.
It actually opened the eyes for the world at large.
Everybody was talking about the future is collaborative robots.
Prior to UR, there was a lot of talk about all the things that never worked in Odense, and now people, they talk about all the things that are possible.
So everybody suddenly realized there's something special going on in Odense.
And this was only the beginning, because it wasn't just Universal Robots.
There's a whole string of equally great companies in the making. Companies that are also growing at phenomenal rates of more than 50% a year.
Ranging from startups to large corporations, Odense now houses dozens of robotics companies and a total of several thousand employees.
I have not seen any denser cluster of robot technology anywhere else. We have the university with the world-class research. We have Technological Institute, which brings technology out to the industries. And then we have the local government, who's all for robotics and all for robots.
People see each other as colleagues more than competitors.
Companies are building their own business on other companies also.
And they need each other. So they exchange information, they even exchange people.
We have some extremely exciting jobs here that you cannot find in other cities.
A limiting factor on high-tech industries is usually talent. And talent is attracted by talent. And the critical mass of talent is in Odense.
There's a huge interest in investing in Odense now.
And it's been a lot easier for the startups to raise funding.
When you come out and say that you are part of the Odense robot cluster, you get an ear with the customers.
But Odense needs more. It needs you.
We are already one of the leading cities in the world, but I think that Odense as a robotics city can grow even further.
It's probably one of the best places in the world to start building robot businesses. And that's why Odense has become, say, a rising star in the robot scene in the world.
If you are able to succeed in robotics, then it's here.
Yeah, so it was quite a good video from the city of Odense. So if you want to go move there, I'm not gonna get any money from them. So the first thing when you see that video is thinking about, wait, how can a country, a small cities of like, sorry, it was 180,000 people, a little bit more, can get to be the city of robots, so such a competitive place for such an industry that is also booming. So blooming. How does it start? Why in Odense and not in other places? So we're gonna now see a little bit more about the history of Odense. Odense was as I told you, it is the third most populous city of Denmark, with roughly 180,000 people living there. And the main industrial activities was related to with an endowment of Odense. Odense is a city on the sea, so they have a lot of activities in the maritime industry and also in shipbuilding, with the Odense Steel Shipyard, the OSS, employing more than 3,000 employees. So it was not really something related to robots. So how did robots start and how they get to the success they have today. It all started during the 80s, so more than 40 years ago. Prosperity is not something you build in a term in 5 years or in the term of just a specific government. It's something that goes for many years before coming to produce results and a leading position. So we are in the 80s, and the shipyards that it was fearing the competition from the East Asian shipyards starting to look at way in order to improve its competitiveness. So it's a firm starting to struggle with East Asian competition. And so they started investing in research and development, and they started to look at a way to apply robots in the shipbuilding and ship maintenance activity. And in order to do that, they started to do a partnership with the local university, the Odense University. And all of that in the 80s started from one single man. So as always, it's some brilliant mind that starts things and then other brilliant mind that follows. So it's the exact date is 1988. Is Carl Hedersen. He was the vice chancellor of the University of Odense, and he was in charge of research of discovering new way to new research joint research projects with industries. And he did a very simple thing. He went out of university, and he had a couple of meetings with the entrepreneur of Odense. And entrepreneur of Odense, he was thinking about way to do joint research. And the entrepreneur of Odense told there is some things moving in Japan with robots. We just bought one just for having fun. Can we do something with that? And he said, okay, we can do something with that, because we have an engineering department. We can start looking at that and see way in that robots can be applied in shipbuilding and ship maintenance. And then just in 10 years later, we have the first research going and the founding of a very important project, the AMROS project in Odense, that carry out more than 6 years of research and development on robots and shipbuilding activity. And AMROS was very successful because was a joint venture between a mathematician, John Perrin, the one on the left, of Odense University, and the shipyard firm OSS. And this is a picture of the two of them, and the other one is the head of research and development in the shipyard. And so what happened? They carried out more than 6 years on research and development. There were a lot of funding coming from the shipyards. The things were going quite good because more than 200 people were involved in the research activity, in the research and development activity. AMROS was founded and was located in a new science park near the university and near the shipyard. And also it attracted the interest of the local branch of the Danish Institute of Technology. So there was also interest from the central government. Then something changed. It's 2002. The shipyard, so the very firm starting and founding everything, was really entering a different strategy that ultimately will lead to its closure. So the shipyard no more, and they cut all the fundings to that research and development activity. And so you had more than 200 researchers. You have 6 years of projects and so on, and what to do. And instead of letting these people go and all the knowledge accumulated in robotics cluster, the funding was initially provided by the university. So they, in 2002, both the Danish Institute of Technology and the University of Odense, that now was rebranded as University of Southern Denmark, joined together with a new initiative in order to to look for public fundings, both national and both European fundings. And that kind of network was called RoboCluster. So in 2002, we have the very first named and initiative, still led by university, so no government, local or central involvement, for looking for new way to fund the research activity. And then we have another issue, because from 2002 to 2012, Odense activity in manufacturing was really shrinking. More than half of the jobs in manufacturing in Odense was lost in 10 years. And in 2012, also as I told you before, the OSS, the shipbuilding activity, totally ceased all the activities. So let's think about you are the local government of Odense and you have that situation. What you're gonna do, apart from resigning probably. And fortunately, they were able to identify what they have inherited from previous activity, and they start to put money and developing a strategic plan regarding the growth of the robotics activity. So the first thing they do, they of course they put money, because the government do that, on in creating a new organization that was carry on attracting business in robotics and fostering their growth. That organization is called Odense Robotics, and is still working right now. The video you see is from Odense Robotics. And the local government of the city of Odense was also able to involve the government at the county level, so an upper level, and other 5 municipalities leading investment into this activity. And not only, also the Danish Minister of Science found the robotics to be quite an important investment to make, and so some money came from there and also from European Union. So in 2014, we have the founding of this organization, a strategy and the foundings, and companies started pouring in. One of the most important company that also you have seen in the video is Universal Robots. Universal Robots was founded in 2006. So think about how many years it takes from an idea of a research project to the commercial success of an idea. So they founded in 2006. They were the 3 PhD students from the Odense University, and they see the opportunity. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, of developing some robots that were smaller and more agile than those big robots you maybe see in industrial plants, in which people cannot really stay close because it would be dangerous. They researched and tried to bring at this new era of robots that are called collaborative robots, because people can stay really close and work together. And in 2004, the funding of Universal Robots, they were able to have nowadays they have more than 220 million in turnover and over 600 employees. That's quite good for a company like that. And how they were able to achieve success and grow, and that is thankfully to the collaboration that you have seen also in the video, the collaboration between university, the collaboration between new companies coming and also established ventures, and also from financial services. So from 2014 up now to 2022, this is all the actors that are now involved in the Odense Robotics cluster. Still, thanks to organization that is caring for talking to companies, talking to university, and try to new way to collaborate. We have, of course, a lot of companies, both established and like ABB is quite famous. It's a multinational one, even new startups. We have, of course, all the partners from financing, but also all the part from researcher from University of Odense, but also other university in the world. This idea of bringing company together is, as we said before, a way to increase the prosperity of a location, because it will be easy to develop new initiatives and innovation when the bounds are so close together. Nowadays, just to give you some figures, do you remember how many employees did the shipyard had in the 80s? No? 3,000, exactly. So from the shipyard in the 80s, shipyard then closing. Now in 40 years, the Odense robotics cluster now employees. Now we have over 133 companies. Over half of them are founded after 2010, so very fresh company. And this company attracted more than 1 billion euro in investments, more than half coming from private equity, so venture capital. And this company have a turnover of over 1 billion euro. So, and employing more than, okay, I don't have the data, but sorry. So it's something that you are not really missing anymore, the shipyard of before. So we were able to see how the company how territories get involved in new activities and bring prosperity from a situation that was in decline. And you may think maybe that in order to compete and create prosperity, you have to work on very cool new things like robots, but that's not the case. It's something that it's really not the case. Let's see the second case for today. That is the city of Alsamir. Someone know the city of Alsamir or Alsamir? Sorry, no. Okay, a little, of course. I wanted to bring some examples that are not really well known, and places that are not really well known, because everyone can talk about Silicon Valley, but it's quite easy to do that. I want to stimulate your curiosity, even in remote places like Odense. So Alsamir is the head of one of the most competitive business in not only in the world, but maybe in the Netherlands. That is the cultivating flower and distributing flower. You know, probably you all know the tulips and so on coming from Holland and so on. And it's, as I told you before, is one of the most competitiveness and prosperity region, because not really on what they compete is still flower. It's still something that you see, okay, how can I get high productivity? How can I get a lot of value from growing and selling flowers? Because they're doing something more sophisticated than just growing flowers. And we're going to see that.
This tiny piece of the world is where the commercial trade in flowers and plants takes place. From the most simple plant to the most exotic flower. Everything comes together at the largest flower auction on earth, Flora Holland, the cooperative consisting of about 8,000 floriculture growers. It all begins at the nursery, of course. This is where the bulbs grow into mature tulips before they continue their lives elsewhere. The specialist grower knows exactly when the tulips are ready to be sold. He also knows that they need to be taken to Flora Holland as soon as possible to be auctioned. And he knows that the tulips have to be top quality, because he wants to produce his products sustainably and sell them to the best florists in Europe. The tulips are ready to go to Flora Holland. But which auction will he choose? He decides to split his lot of tulips and sell it at 2 different markets. This will help him get the best price. We love flowers, and this starts at an early age. Flora Holland's auction is like a complicated logistics puzzle, which has to be solved as fast as possible, day in, day out. The tulips and millions of other flowers are assembled here, from Holland as well as from the rest of the world. Everything is collected so that it can appear at the auction clock. This is where supply and demand come together, and traders whose customers are located all over the world buy their flowers here. This flower trader is involved in a lot for international export. He knows what his customers in Rome, Frankfurt and Paris want. He's searching for a specific lot of tulips. He's made his bid, and the tulips are his. In an hour, they're ready to be shipped internationally, and not long after, the tulips are already part of a French bouquet. We love getting flowers. When you've achieved something, when you turn 16, or when you have graduated.
So it's not really about flowers. Have you seen all the auction system that was quite advanced, and also the logistic from the auction to the international expedition in just 1 hour? It's like the time you can get a meal with Uber Eats or Rappi. And so it's not really, as I told you before, it's not really about flowers, but it's really about you do the cultivation and the sale and distribution of flowers. So this is another representation of which are the activities that are included in the flower cluster in Alsamir. They have, of course, all the activities regarding the basic production of flowers, so the breedings, also the genetic engineering coming from university and research organization. Then they have the fertilizer, the irrigation, and so on. But what is really focused on this system is, the logistic. So the Schiphol Airport is one of the most efficient airports in Europe, the one in Amsterdam, and they have a lot of they have the KLM air company that leads to the transportation of flowers, fresh flowers, all over the world, as I told you, in just 1 hour from the auction system. And I don't know if you ever seen the control room like that, and if you ever think about having a system such that for flowers. It reminds me more than a NASA control for launching satellites or shuttles than really selling flowers. But that's the kind of advancement that you can make when you're trying to upgrade the competitive strategy of firms and then the prosperity of a territory. Last but not least, let's go with the Italian case, which I'm very fond of. It's the case of Motor Valley. So once again, a small video at first. Of course, Motor Valley, because the place of Modena and all the Emilia region is the birthplace of such very famous brands like Ferrari, Lamborghini, Dallara, Pagani, and Ducati also for motorbikes. We will see how in just 20 years, once again, with the initial involvement of the government and then the creation of organization going by itself, they were able to improve their attractiveness as a tourism destination. Okay, this was the promotional video for the last event from Motor Valley. As I told you, it's not really a cluster and an industry about Ferrari, Lamborghini, and so on. That is an established company that is going well. Of course, it's also a cluster starting from early 19th centuries, coming from tractors and then evolving into what we know today as one of the most beautiful car in the world. Sorry, I have to say that. But we are talking about how the regional government leverage that kind of the presence of that industrial activities in order to improve their attraction as a tourism destination. So everything happened around 2000 when Bologna was named European Capital of Culture. Is a way to promote the cities that are not well known in Europe for tourism destination. And the city of Modena asked, okay, what we can do since Bologna is giving that, we will have some people coming. How can we get people from Bologna, that is the main city, to our cities? And they started to, once again, to involve, to think about way to create it and improve the tourism sector in their area. And they started thinking about bringing together which are some cultural and also some elements that were available in the city. And what are they? They are, of course, the different museum coming from the collection of the company itself. Ferrari as its industrial parents, but also its collection. And also the private collection, because a lot of people in the Modena and the Emilia-Romagna region are car collectors or motorbike collectors. And moreover, we also try to sponsor events and in tourist package in order to include also the participation to events holding more than 5 different circuits that are available in the area, and also cardrooms. So in like 20 years, Motor Valley, that is now an established brand with an organization, both led by private organization leading in tourism and also with the government involvement, brings together more than 8,000 firms and 2,000 workers. And it consists about the 10% of the export, since tourism is considered an export of Emilia-Romagna region. And as I told you, it brings together more than 13 corporate museum and also 11 private collectors, 4 sports circuits, and 11 cardrooms. Even that some of that sports circuits were going to be abandoned since there were too much for global competition. That's a way in order you understand what are your endowments, what you have, and you can relaunch your activities and create more meaningful sector and jobs. And once again, this is the map of how everything gets together. So you have the tourism, of course, the tourism accommodation, hotels, restaurant, transportation. That is quite important for having a tourism industry. But also you have all the industrial heritage, so cultural elements that have been leveraged by this cluster. I want to leave you with another video about the Motor Valley case, since we are about to end. It's quite a funny video. I hope you will enjoy it.
Welcome in Emilia-Romagna. Here is Emilia-Romagna. I say Emilia-Romagna. Magna in Italian means to eat. I show you the plastic model. Via Emilia, Emilia Road. And then Piacenza, Parma, Reggio, Modena and Bologna. But Emilia-Romagna is not only the land of food, culture and history. Emilia-Romagna is the land of engine. Emilia-Romagna is the motor valley. It's here where it all started. In Emilia-Romagna, where passion for wheels is a true mass passion. For example, here we are in Imola, where every year the biggest motor show to trade all cars and motorcycles takes place.
Le moto sono un esame qui da noi.
More than 100,000 visitors come here.
E da dove vengono? Tutto il mondo.
I come from near Bristol in England.
Me too. I have got an old motorcycle. It's a Guzzi 500 Pastore from 1948. The ideal way to travel in Motor Valley. First stop, San Martino in Rio, near Reggio Emilia. Roberto Bellani and his Ansaldo from 1927 takes me to the Car Museum, a collection of beauties from the 30s, all still running perfectly.
Questa macchina, che marca è e di che anno è? È una Z10 HP del 1910, quindi prima della prima guerra mondiale.
Second stop, Bagnolo in Piano di Reggio, where Nello Salsapariglia is waiting for me.
Oh, Patrizio, sei arrivato!
Doesn't collect only Czechoslovakian, German and Italian motorcycles, Guzzi, BMW, Bianchi, but he collects also farm tractors. Because in Emilia-Romagna, the engine power helped the people in farming, and then it became a philosophy.
Quando uno è in motocicletta, ha l'impressione di essere una roba lì. Vai dove vuoi, come vuoi, fai via liscio come vuoi.
If you are in trouble, like me with my motorcycle, Nello and Ivano Salsapariglia will help you to start again and reach the next Motor Valley collection on Via Emilia in Modena. Stagliellini?
Sì,
Molto piacere. Vittorio Stagliellini's father was Francesco, the Motor Valley pioneer.
Perché mio padre è stato il primo, poi di lui è iniziato Ferrari e poi i fratelli Maserati che hanno creato la Maserati.
In Stanguellini Museum you can find handmade car models which made history in car racing.
Su questa sagoma e veniva saldati insieme tutti i fogli di lamiera e realizzata la carrozzeria.
And in his workshop, Stanguellini still has his old mechanics at work.
Sono gli artisti.
Simone Stanguellini, Vittorio's son, gives me a lift to Umberto and Matteo Panini's house. They live not far from here, just outside Modena.
Le moto, i motori e le forme di parmigiano hanno una cosa in comune. Si capiscono dal rumore, è vero?
Sì, sì.
Panini family not only produces in its model farm biological Parmigiano Reggiano, but the family has also collected the most amazing historical cars and motorcycles, and above all, Maserati.
250F.
On the wall, you can see an old photo dated 1927 with the entire Maserati team.
Guarda le facce, poi insomma sono tutti così orgogliosi, vedi questo è l'orgoglio meccanico.
Then you continue to Panzano, between Modena and Bologna, where there is Mario Righini Castle, where you can see the first Ferrari model.
Si chiama Auto Avio Costruzioni tipo 815, che è la prima automobile che fece Ferrari nel 1940.
And the last Ferrari from the Righini collection is Gilles Villeneuve's original one. If you want to see the Persian Charles Ferrari Super America from 1963, or Marilin's car,
l'ha proprio guidata Marilyn.
L'ha guidata, si è seduta su quest'auto e l'ha guidata naturalmente.
visit Mananello Rosso Collection in San Marino, where you can find the most expensive Ferrari in the world, the GTO.
Ha vinto 3 campionati del mondo consecutivamente. Insomma, quest'auto da quando è nata ha solo vinto.
And even these economy cars won everything possible.
Lotte 50 Abarth
turned into racing cars here in Emilia-Romagna thanks to Carlo Abarth, father of the modern tuning. Motor Valley comes straight into the heart of Bologna. In a building of the city center lives another grain collector called Gianpietro Parmigiani. He keeps one of his beauties in the middle of his living room.
Non ci sta male, no?
No, ci sta benissimo, è una moto stupenda. It's the Buick Guzzi 8 cylinder.
Questo è il famoso gondolino Guzzi.
Mr. Parmigiani is fond of Guzzi. He keeps many others in his cellar, with Ray Gilera, Ducati, and M.P. Augusta racing motorcycle.
Questo arriva in 200 l'ora.
Oh, my Guzzi 500 Astore can't make it, but the street corner is short. Nigeri collection is here on Bologna Piers. Quindi voi siete specializzati in moto
Progettate e costruite Bologna.
In Bologna it was motorcycle breeding ground. There were 83 motor builders, Cimatti, CM, Italmoto, Hydroflex, and of course Morini. Il 250 più veloce del mondo. I ran away from Nigeri's third Jackson and I ran to Cento di Ferrara in a museum dedicated to the great myth for engines, Ferruccio Lamborghini. Il signor Lamborghini suppongo, Fabio, his nephew, will show you Lamborghini masterpieces as Miura and Countach. And here, origins of Lamborghini's Genio, his first modified car.
Questa era assolutamente una Topolino.
E Fiat Topolino turned into a racing car to run the race Milvinga.
Carissimo.
The next museum is once more at collector's home. Benito Battilani from Imola is considered an authority all over Europe, a real critic in the art of restoration.
Se perdi la storia, hai perso tutto.
Motorcycle history and the riders' stories.
Cos'è questa? È la prima moto di Capionsi.
Ma dai, vero? Next to Ravenna, you arrive at Mauro Pascolis, a monomaniac collector. He's got the entire Piaggio production, from mini cars to farm tractors and outboard. But he's got also every single Vespa model, from the first to the last, including a unique Vespa military model, a rolling mini tank.
È stata fatta per l'esercito francese, usata dalla legione straniera nel 1959 nella guerra in Algeria.
From Ravenna to Rimini to the National Motorcycle Museum, where you can find motorcycles of all sorts, but above all, sidecars. Non ci credo, il galletto sidecar. Germano, Dino and Tino, they really ride their motorcycles. Questa è una moto rev di che anno?
1912, bicilindrico alla in testa.
And here, in this motorcycle museum, a true miracle. Fuel turns into good wine. Wheels turn into piadine.
Patrizio, senti la piadina della Sdora?
Molto volentieri.
Abbiamo la salsiccia nostra che la facciamo nel modo tradizionale.
Emilia Romagna, a land of engines and taste, where what matters is the hospitality of people.
So just for concluding, as you see, all that private collector cannot really get together without the involvement of someone else. In this case, it was the region that was trying to look new way to improve the tourist sector. And so what we see today is we can a little have a summary of what we see today. I'm trying to explain you one of the framework in order to understand why some places are richer than others. And the topic of competitiveness is not something that is the engine, since we were talking about motors before, creating economic and social prosperity. But there are some rules that the success case has followed in order to improve their prosperity. So it's not possible to create a cluster or a sector from scratch. So if tomorrow Mexico want to start some new and trendy sector, they still have to look at what they have. It will be better. It will have a higher chance to success. And it's not really important what you do, since you don't need to do the latest, coolest, and technological things, but you can also have a lot of good competitiveness on topics, on products like flowers, but also tourism sector. And another point that I want to take, that this does not happen randomly. So location, industry, and success, it does not really happen from randomness. There are processes, there are strategies, there are people involved. So it's nice to see also organization, both private and public, try to work on that and improving the condition for achieving better prosperity. So I hope I left you with some insights. As I told you before, my objective for today's speech was to leave you with lenses. So if you have a ventana al mundo, you really need some lenses in order to understand it. So if you ever engage in an international abroad experience, but even if you are just having fun in some places, even in Mexico, and you see some industrial activity and you are fond of that or anything else, try to apply which are the concept and the framework you learn in university, in higher education, to what you are seeing, to the world you are seeing through your window. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Massimo, for this great presentation and very interesting topics. And unfortunately, we do not have so much time, but we have a question from people that it's connected through the StreamYard, and I'm gonna quick ask for it. So it says, what are the challenges for the nations that specialize their economies based on supplies or resources from other countries, considering as well the current threats and conflicts between the nations?
Yeah, of course, it's quite a hot topic right now. If you think just about the situation with Russian and all the dependency of energy sector in Europe on Russian gas, and one of the way is to think ahead. I mean, if you have a strategy, you also have to think ahead about which are the implications, especially if you are like, I can talk about Italy because I know the number. The 60% of the gas and the energy sector in Italy was dependent on Russian gas. And this was years and years of precise political decision, not something that happened just out of the blue. So having a strategy, thinking ahead, thinking about challenges, and also have a plan in order to deal with that kind of situation could be helpful. I mean, it's not something really that you ask to your politician and decision maker to have a plan about prosperity or even economic development of your territories, but it's something that I think citizens should ask to their government.
Thank you very much. So as I said, unfortunately, we do not have more time for more questions, but Massimo is here a couple of minutes more, so you can reach to him and make some other questions. And well, we want to thank Massimo for this collaboration and this excellent lecture. And we want to give a small present for an appreciation of being here with us today.